Hi, everyone, and welcome to A and B Horror Movies. I'm Aaron, and I'm very excited to be joined today by Dillon Brown. Dillon, welcome.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
This is going to be fantastic. You're very welcome. I can't wait to chat with you about your films, specifically Tahoe Joe and Tahoe Joe 2. I do have some physical copies here. These are amazing Bigfoot horror found footage films. I'm a fan. Can't wait to chat with you about these.
There's something behind you.
Let's see, you founded Horror Nerd Productions out of Reno, Nevada. You've
Yes.
also produced films such as The Flock, Ghost, and you have an upcoming film called The Summer We Died. It escaped
Correct.
me for a moment. Yes, a very impressive lineup, amazing films. Let's just jump right into it. My first question is, with Tahoe Joe and the sequel, how did these films come about? How did you decide to, I'm going to make a Bigfoot horror?
Well, it's funny that you brought up The Flock because that's kind of around the time that I decided I wanted to try out the whole Bigfoot thing. We had just wrapped that movie, and it was kind of one of those catastrophic failure movies that somehow we were able to finish, and like we got everything together, but what was in my head didn't necessarily translate out in person and in front of the camera. And so I was having this really kind of conflicting I don't know, like artistic moment where I thought, okay, I have the movie done and it's edited, but it's not necessarily, I think, exactly what I was going for. And a lot of it was brand new director took on like this huge story that was way too big for our budget. And
Hmm.
I kept thinking the whole time, you should have done this or you should have done that. And one of the things that stuck out in my head was if you had maybe filmed this like a mockumentary, maybe that would have helped, with some of the problems we ran into. And so I was thinking, okay, mockumentary might actually be the next thing to do after this. You should at least attempt it to see if maybe that's the direction you want to go. And I was like, well, what do you do a mockumentary on? So I had looked at some of the really good ones in found footage, which were like The Bay or
Hmm.
I Love Savage Land. And then, of
Hmm.
course, my friend Dutch Merritt with the Horror in the High Desert movies. He's like a master
Yes.
at that.
Yes.
And so for
Great
some
films.
reason,
Mhm.
oh, they're so good. Um,
Yes.
and for some reason, the only thing I could think of was Bigfoot, and I don't know why. I guess I just had seen maybe enough stuff on like YouTube or Discovery that for some reason I couldn't shake Bigfoot. So Michael Rock, who's my co-director and actor in the movies,
Hmm.
was in the flock. It's the first time I'd ever met him, and we were at the premiere of the movie. And I was kind of giving him this warning of like, hey, maybe this movie's not exactly what you were expecting either, because it's not exactly what I was expecting. But if you'll give me another chance, I have this idea. And I was like, it's a Bigfoot movie. And I saw his face was like, Bigfoot. Yeah, sure. And he looked super apprehensive, like just totally like, okay. And he goes, what's your plan for it? And I was like, totally unscripted. And it's going to be filmed like a documentary and we're going to play ourselves. And he's just looking at me like, dude, yeah, maybe. And I was like, I'm going to have to really convince this guy to do this. So I grabbed the
Yeah.
camera and
Hmm.
I shot the opening scene and I sent it to him and I was like, hey, this is kind of the vibe I'm going for. I totally get it if you're not into this, but here's what I did with the opening scene, and then here's like the title credits. And I sent it to him, and he's like, "Bro, that looks real. I didn't know that you were really going for that kind of a vibe." He's like, "I'm so in." Um,
Hmm. And
and
you did
so,
such an amazing job making it feel real, and it gets. I mean, the ending, the final act is it's terrifying. But go ahead. I cut you off there for a second.
oh no, it's all good. It's just it was one of those things where it was like the most organic thing, I guess, how it happened. Because once he was on board, he was sending me stuff that he was shooting while he was like in Dallas, Texas on an actual work thing. And we were like, this is easy. We're just integrating our real life into this, but we have this kind of fake Bigfoot,
Yeah.
plot that's interweaving here. Um, and
So cool.
most of it
Mhm.
was shot without us being around each other until the second half of the movie when we finally met up.
Yes.
Um, and so that's pretty much how it started. It was just kind of like an experiment that worked.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And the stars aligned, right? It all came together so well. If you haven't seen Tahoe Joe, definitely check it out. It's fantastic. You mentioned that it was unscripted. So how much of it, I guess this is the first time I'm hearing that, how much of it was unscripted and what sort of planning went into it? Was it, go ahead. What would you say to
Basically,
that?
we just wrote like a really rough outline because Mike and I were
Hmm.
thinking if we go completely unscripted, we might like lose the plot here. Like it might go to where we're like, hey, we're so far from where we started in this that we can't get back. So we're like, we at least need to have some sort of like bullet points that we're going to work towards for each moment in the movie, so it kind of keeps us in line. Um, but we only made the movie for $800, and we knew that when you're
That's
making a movie.
fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. It's terrifying too.
Congratulations, man. Terrifying, but also
Oh,
amazing. Eight
so
hundred
when you're,
dollars and probably countless hours of your time, I would say.
oh yeah, like a lot, very much.
Mm-hmm.
I was like living, in that moment for I don't know, probably 6 months. Uh,
Do you still have
but
nightmares about Tahoe Joe? Hey, there he is right behind you. I've got to point that out
he's right
too.
there. Um,
I've got a few questions for him too, if we have time.
awesome. Well, he'll be ready. So I think that one of the reasons it was so easy to go unscripted was since we didn't have a lot of money, we were kind of like, at least it gives us the ability to be really fluid. So if something does happen, we can kind of change on the fly and we don't have to say, oh, great, X, YZ happened. And now we're screwed here. We don't have anywhere to go because we don't have the money to pay for it or to get us out of this jam. And
Mhm.
a prime example is in the first movie, as you'll remember, there we bring out a drone with us, and then it crashes, and there's like signal crossing, and all this stuff's going on. That
Yep.
was not supposed to happen. That actually, the drone malfunctioned while we were out there in the field filming, and so we just integrated it into the plot because we didn't know what else to do. Since our whole idea with the drone basically was kaput,
Ah, yeah,
so we
yeah.
just were like, well, okay, it crashed. We actually have footage of it crashing and malfunctioning. Let's just throw that into the movie and we'll come up with some reason why. And there you go.
Yeah, but how fortuitous is that? Because it worked so well in the film. Because then there's sort of like, I mean, I don't want to give anything away. You kind of think that maybe something interfered with this
Yes.
drone
Well,
malfunctioning.
and that was
Um,
thanks to our actor who played Shane, because he had spent some time up there and was actually bringing up real stories about. There was like a fire tower not far from there, and he was saying that I think they probably don't allow a lot of drone flying because it would mess up with the tower, the spotters up there and their signals and stuff. And so we were like, well, let's go ahead and try it. We'll fly it and see what happened. And then when it went down, we thought, oh, I wonder if there is like an actual signal jammer up here and we're not supposed to be flying this thing. And so he's the one that was like, put it in the movie. And we're like, okay, I guess we'll do it. Because at first, Mike and I were like, ay, what are we going to do? We're so far out here. Um, and then, yeah, it's just, I think it's a lot of trust, having trust in each other that
mhm.
we'll figure it out is what made it work.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Um, what was it like? So I don't know if I pointed out that you're also one of the lead actors in the film. What was it like being sort of the mastermind behind it all, but then also having to get in front of the camera and act and be a character in this movie?
Um, it was terrifying, honestly. It's so safe to be behind the camera,
Mhm.
and know what's going to happen, and you're kind of directing everybody. Um, Mike, on the other hand, Mike is like he's a ham. Like he loves the spotlight, and he's so good, and he's charismatic, and so for him, it was like he's chewing it up, and I'm the one that was like, okay, I have to get in front of the camera again, and I need to kind of get myself psyched up for it. And I tended to do better when I was self filming my stuff and it wasn't in front of anybody else. And then the minute I had to go act
Mhm.
with everybody else is when I started to get really nervous. Um, But on the flip side of that, Mike had never really directed or anything before. So I think he was finding comfort in, I knew the shots we were going to get. I knew the lighting, like I knew all of that kind of stuff. And so I think we just played off of each other, where his kind of fears on what the footage was going to look like were sort of put to rest because he knew I was in control of that. And then my fears of being in front of the camera were kind of, mitigated because I had Mike there to sort of be my crutch, that he was going to pull me out of it if I got into a jam or something.
Excellent. So Mike is, of course, Michael Rock, who is your co-star, co-director. It seems you have a lot of chemistry on screen together. It seems like you're good friends on camera and even off. Can you speak a little bit more about what it's like collaborating and working with him? Because it's been a number of films now, right? I
Yeah.
watched Ghost last night, and he's in that. I assume you're the guy behind the camera in Ghost with the thumbs up,
Yes, I was
or is that
Monk.
okay? You were Monk,
And,
yeah.
and you'll notice why Monk takes a vow of
Thumbs
silence,
up, thumbs
because
down. Yeah.
I just said I don't really like to act as much as I can help it. So it was the perfect way to be in the movie and
Mm.
not be in the movie.
Yes, yes. Oh, well, for those watching, we're referring to Ghost, which came out in 2023, and it's streaming on Tubi. If you want to check it
Yes,
out. Yeah.
yes. Mike and I work so well together, though. I think because with Mike being a former Green Beret and being trained and like having to work on the fly, and he
Hmm.
has to adapt and be so ready to just kind of be successful at whatever. Because at that time his life and his friends' lives were all literally on the line, and I think a lot of that has translated into his work ethic in film, where he's just ready to tackle whatever. Hey, it's like no challenge is too big. If something happens on set, it's fine. We'll figure out a way. And then on my side, as we were discussing pre-show, I work in kind of business side of the Army, and a lot
Hmm.
of my job has to deal with how to allocate funding correctly, and how to get the most bang for your buck and all that. So I think those two mindsets get together and we start figuring out, okay, how can we get this done and what's the most realistic way? Also, what are like the
Hmm.
potential outcomes? We're always like foreseeing the future and forecasting what could happen so we can plan ahead. And then I would say the most important part is that Mike and I just genuinely like each other. I mean, he is like my big brother, and we
Yeah.
have an unbelievable time just hanging out. And so for us, movie making has never really ever felt like work. It's always just kind of like some bros just chilling out.
Yeah, going out in the woods, and I think even in Tahoe Joe that becomes sort of a joke that you have. Um, so in Tahoe Joe, both one and two, the sequel that is out, the newest film, um, there's a lot of night scenes where, especially actually in both, but the night scenes in the first one, Tahoe Joe, are very intense. So my question is, what was it like filming at night, and what were some of the challenges that maybe you didn't expect with all the night footage that you had to capture? And did you really get
Uh,
lost in the woods? That's sort
yeah, well,
of.
so I will say that the
Mhm.
nighttime stuff was purely a result, and this is total. Any indie director creator will completely agree with me here. Um,
Mhm.
we purposely wanted bad lighting because our creature suit was not very good in the light. It's like the minute there was full light on it, it was like, no way are we going to put that on camera. So we knew like we're just going to have to figure this out. He has to be at night. He has to be really kind of sparsely lit because
Mhm.
that will sell it. If it's and really, I mean, even in big budget movies, many times for me, and I love monster movies, if you show it too much, it just starts to
Yeah.
lose the appeal after a while.
Mhm.
I like the mystery.
Yeah,
Um,
it's what you don't see is
a
scarier than
100%, right?
what you do see. Yep.
So as far as the challenges, number one was running around a mountain at like 8,500 feet elevation with a green beret, and I was really out of shape. So I'm trying to keep up with this guy, like scaling, and we're running all over the place. And the oxygen's like really thin up there, and I'm just like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. Um,
So
and
how
then
much of it was acting and how much of it was
yeah, well,
real? Wait for
all of the
me.
all of the heavy breathing on camera is real because I was really gassed up there. I mean, I was tired.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then, I mean, a serious challenge that was actually kind of the one that was more frightening was because we were on a fairly steep hillside on one part of the movie, it was making sure that while I was running around with this kind of big camera rig that was fairly heavy, was
Mhm.
that I didn't, trip and fall and take like a bad stumble or run into a tree branch. There was a lot of like, low hanging tree branches that I couldn't necessarily see until I was right on them.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of it was kind of, you know, Mother Nature just being there, and humans not
Mhm.
having the best eyes for that kind of stuff. So that was definitely a bit of a challenge where I had to work a little slower than I wanted. But then I think that's what sort of helped the tension in the movie, is because we were moving around a little bit slower and not necessarily getting away from the area when we run into Joe as fast as I would in my real life. I think it helped build the tension, and it was mostly because I was
Mhm.
navigating that dangerous landscape. Um, and then, I mean, you're out there. We're out in the Tahoe National Forest. We weren't really at Lake Tahoe. We were more closer to the Reno side, on the Nevada side.
Okay.
Um, but we were. I mean, you're still out there in the wilderness, and so it's pitch dark. It's probably 11 o'clock at night, and you definitely catch glowing eyes of whatever is living out there a couple times with the camera lens. I heard a lot of noises. We heard a lot of stuff skittering around in there. Probably squirrels, probably deer, but it definitely helps when you're going to make a scary Bigfoot movie when there's like actual noises and things going on
Mm.
out there in the dark. It helped a lot.
Oh, I bet. I mean, I was just going to ask, like, were there scary elements? Like, were there moments where you really were scared being out in the woods like that? Um,
Yeah, I mean, there were times when it just kind of helped me get into the character. But as far as like actually being scared, I've just grown up here my whole life, and so I've
okay.
done a lot of hunting and fishing and hiking through the woods. And then it also, when your homeboy is a Green Beret and he's there with you, you're kind of like, whatever. I'm not that
You
worried
felt
about it.
safe. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
fine.
Like, oh, I'm with him. I'm with him. Nothing to worry
Yeah,
about
yeah.
here. Excellent. So you said in the first one that the Tahoe Joe, the monster itself, didn't look as good as perhaps in the sequel, and I'm guessing the Tahoe Joe behind you right there is from the sequel because he looks very scary from here. Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of Tahoe
Yeah,
Joe?
yeah. So I made the first costume in my garage. It was kind of my first attempt at some sort of creature build. We got an old ghillie suit, and I was like painting it and rolling it around in the dirt and like gluing moss into it and all this kind of stuff. And then we had this old, and this is so funny, but it was an old Planet of the Apes mask that I completely repainted. I redid the mouth, glued in
Mhm.
different teeth, and like redid the eyes, and so I like created this Bigfoot face out of it. Um, and it looked hilarious. It was so silly that I was like, the only way this will work is if we make it in like it has to be like a comedy movie. This thing is terrible looking. Um, but we turned the lights off in my workspace and backlit him. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, actually, here, if you were to see that running around out in the woods with just a barely enough light, that actually looks pretty cool. And you get a big enough person in it, it was like, okay, this is
Mm.
this is not so bad. So that was kind of like I showed Mike like, hey, here's some test footage I did in the dark, and this is how he's gonna look. And Mike was like, actually, that's pretty good. But we totally took the Jaws approach, right? It was like,
Mhm.
we know he's out there, but we don't necessarily need to show him too much because
Mhm.
it's not going to be scary. Um, the second one, we knew, well, first of all, the suit fell apart after the first movie when we were filming it. It completely fell apart. Um, and then in
Oh, I
Tahoe Joe
bet you.
2,
Mhm.
we basically were like, okay, we're going to get a little more money together. We already had the story, and it was like our big focus was we have to completely revamp this suit because we need something that's A, going to hold up, but B, we want to show him a little more, and we need to figure out a way that it's a little more convincing. So we got a hold of Immortal Masks in LA. They
Okay.
have done some amazing work. In fact, one of their lead sculptors, Andrew Freeman, won the show Face Off that used to be on Sci-Fi Channel.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
cool.
So he won that. And I think he's actually the guy that did the original concept art for Joe back there. And then another molder did the sculpting.
Oh,
Um,
excellent.
but so we went with them to do our headpiece, and then I did a lot of the hair work myself. We got some different costume pieces and kind of put it together. I did some painting and stuff, and finally had a Bigfoot that was like, okay, we can show this one a little more. Only to then make the sequel where we still pretty much only showed him at night anyway. But
Yeah, sure.
at least I had the confidence where he could be in it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. In the daylight, it's scary. Imagine with the lights down low. Yeah, well, congratulations on your films. You mentioned early on that when you thought about doing this film, you immediately thought, let's do a Bigfoot picture. What do you think is appealing about cryptids? Because they seem to be having sort of a resurrection lately. There's the Cryptids movie that came out, Frogman, of course, Tahoe Joe. What do you think why are people drawn to cryptids lately? And
First
I'm
I'm
wearing
gonna
my
jump.
Cryptids Rodeo
Yeah,
t-shirt that I
right.
picked up in Salem, and there's Bigfoot right
I'm gonna jump on the Frogman hype train and just give Anthony a shout out because we actually got
there.
to premiere our movies together, Frogman and Tahoe Joe 2 at the Unnamed Footage Fest this year in San Francisco. And I had already seen Frogman and I was this huge fan. And so when they said that I got to play Tahoe Joe 2 like right before Frogman was playing, I was like, oh, this is so cool for me. It was like such an honor. And then I got to meet him and he's like the kindest, sweetest individual ever. So
Yes.
shout out to
Mhm.
Anthony. Um,
Oh, very cool.
but
I'm a huge fan
cryptids,
of Frogman too. And I
it's
talked to
so
him
cool.
a few months ago about his film. So anyway,
Oh,
go
did
ahead.
you?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
um, cryptids are fun though. I think it's just it's like the appeal of the campfire tale. It's that thing that I think all of us at some point had like an uncle or a grandfather or grandmother or mom or dad or somebody at like on a camping trip had some story to tell us. And it's like it usually
Mm.
always was, either a cryptid or it's like the other side, the serial killer, like the man with the hook that, or whatever. But
Yes, yes.
I just
Yeah.
think that the cryptid thing is so fun because everybody has an idea of what Bigfoot
Hmm.
is or what the Loch Ness monster is, and everybody. It's like it's not even a thing that you have to read about or believe in or watch movies about. Everybody has had some sort of exposure to a cryptid of some sort, and they have their
Hmm.
idea. But
Yes.
because we don't have proof, that any of these things really exist outside of the world's worst video that always seems to be the only way anybody catches them. Um,
Of course.
it affords you this like massive leeway to just create your own stories, and that's what we did with Joe. um, People had talked about seeing Bigfoot up by Lake Tahoe, but he didn't really have a name or anything. I basically created the legend of Tahoe Joe just for the movie,
Hmm.
by taking an old legend of a mountain man named Tahoe Joe who supposedly robbed all these like different military encampments, and he would like steal from one side and then sell ammunition to the other side, but then he'd rob them and sell it back to the other side. And he was just like this guy that lived up in the hills, and it has all these stories about him. And I thought, well, what if we take that real story of a mountain man, but we apply that name to like our own Bigfoot legend? And so we just created it. And the really fun thing is I've had some locals when we bring up Tahoe Joe say, "Oh, I've known about Tahoe Joe for years. Yeah, I've definitely had my Bigfoot encounters." And I'm like, "Well, we just kind of made that up, but the fact that it's sort of turning into its own legend locally has actually been really cool." And I'm like, "Hey, I'll let people say whatever they want. If they want to claim that Tahoe Joe's been around since the '60s or whatever,
Hmm.
then go ahead. It hasn't because I just did it about 3 years ago, but whatever, I'll take
Oh,
it."
that's so cool. So it's taking on a life of its own, right? And that'll
Yeah,
give longevity to your film. Wow. I mean, what more could you ask for there?
it's really
Um,
been fun.
If you so you've done a lot of found footage films, which is a fantastic horror subgenre. Are there other subgenres that you'd like to try out? Perhaps a new project, a future film. If you could choose one, what would you go with next?
Um, so I do found footage mostly because it's just when you're an indie filmmaker and you really don't have like a lot of crew or a lot of money to work with,
Of course, the
it's
budget.
such a
Yes.
forgiving, yeah, it's such a forgiving genre to work in. Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, my big goal would be to do like an actual traditionally shot monster movie at some point. Um, but I think if I was just given a chance to work in like a totally different realm or something, I think a horror comedy would be so fun. Like I love Gremlins and Ghoulies and Critters and all those. So
Yes.
I would love to do
Fantastic.
like
Yeah.
a puppeteered little creatures movie or something. In fact, I just watched Frankie Frico,
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a good
and
one.
it
Have you
was
ever-
absolutely hilarious. And it just made me even more say, yeah, someday I need to jump on that. I would love to do a movie like that.
or like Hobgoblins comes to
Yes,
mind. It's very B.
Munchies.
Oh, Munchies. Yes, yes. We need more Critters films. Um, let's see. Have you been surprised by the positive reactions and fan base so far with the Tahoe Joe films?
Yeah, I mean, really, I have. I think when you make a movie for $800, you're thinking, okay, this is probably going to have a lot of haters, and this thing, maybe it's more suited to just put on YouTube and not really, try and say that, oh, we made a real movie, but we did, and we got it out
Hmm.
there, and it's just been so much fun. I mean, just yesterday, I had a guy discovered Tahoe Joe and wrote this really heartwarming review about the movie and kind of what it meant to him because he likes Bigfoot stuff and he wasn't even a found footage fan at all. In fact, he had said the only movie in the genre he'd ever seen was the Blair Witch Project, and then he chose our movie to watch
Second.
because
Wow.
somebody had recommended it, right? And so
Yeah, yeah.
it's so cool when that stuff happens, and I just love the idea that maybe we've created a character that kids, if they watch the movie, they might want to go play Tahoe Joe in the woods or something. And
Hmm.
I want people to tell our story at campfires. Like that would be the dream, is that someday somebody is scaring people at a campfire because they're using our Tahoe Joe story to freak them out. And it's just it's been great. And the found footage community has been really, overwhelmingly supportive of what we've been doing with them. And it's like as soon as the second one was done, I was immediately getting messages within a few days of it being out. So when are we getting part three? And I'm like, okay, well, that's
That
what we
was my
want.
next question. Yeah. Will there be a part three? Can you say? I saw on IMDb that there's Concrete Wilderness. Tahoe Joe 3 is that. Can you say
Yes,
anything yet?
yes.
There will
Part
be.
three
Okay.
will happen. Part three's
Cool.
got a plot basically completely outlined. Um, it is called officially Tahoe Joe 3 Concrete Wilderness, and all I will say is we are taking the Lost World route, and we are bringing Joe onto our turf for this movie. So
Oh, that's awesome. And
fun.
a physical media collector here. Very happy to have these. And you get a third one out. We have a trilogy, so I'm hoping there'll be a box set in the future. Um,
There will be,
but
yeah.
but let's
Actually,
talk.
there
Yes,
is
yeah.
a double disc set right now that just dropped. So the first movie is on Blu-ray for the first time now, and
Okay.
Not Quite Reality Media put it out, and I'll get you a link at some point. Um,
Yeah, let's talk. Yeah,
but
definitely.
he did such a cool job, and we had a and then this is how supportive the found footage community is too. So Jason, who
Hmm.
created Not Quite Reality, he's a found footage fan, and he wanted to give found footage creators a chance to get their stuff on really high end um, disc sets that we couldn't otherwise really get somewhere else. And then another guy named Barrett, who
Cool.
is a fan of Tahoe Joe, created this beautiful Tahoe Joe animation that we used as the menu for the disc, all out of just being
Oh, that's
fans,
awesome.
So it's
Yeah.
it's so cool. And I'm gonna grab, I will grab it real quick so you
Do you
can
have
see.
it? Oh, nice. Yeah, please do.
So
Oh, a
we have
slip
it
cover
right here
even.
with the
Oh
slip
man,
cover,
I have to get that. Let's talk
and
after this. And
absolutely.
how can our viewers watching, how can they get a copy?
You can go to
Not
notquiterealitymedia.com.
quite reality media. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll put that in the description. Not quite
absolutely. We've got
realitymedia.com.
a
Excellent.
collectible book in there. It
Oh,
also comes with,
nice.
this is my favorite. It comes with a like a 4x6 photo of a snapshot if somebody saw Joe out in the wilderness. So yeah, there's all sorts of
Yeah.
options out there. It's
Oh,
great.
congratulations. That's amazing. And I do want to get to this or that, but I love the testimonials that you have throughout the movies to make it feel even more grounded and real with people saying, "Yeah, I've seen him," and telling their stories. I think it works really well. Um, okay, why don't we do this or that? So
Okay.
Ben, my co-host, and I, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, we usually ask these this or that questions, which are kind of fun. Just throw out two things, you pick one or the other.
Okay.
All right, Psycho or Silence of the Lambs?
Psycho.
Psycho, good choice. Megan or Annabelle?
Annabelle.
Annabelle, yeah, I'd probably go with that one too. I got to ask you this: Willow Creek or Exists? If you had to pick,
Exists.
yes. Oh, I love these films, right? Willow Creek
Yeah,
and
I mean they're both
Exists.
wonderful, and I would say I've kind of, I kind of took
Mhm.
from both ideas for how we wanted to do ours. But Exist, obviously, like the king of Bigfoot found footage movies, and then Willow Creek
Yes.
though was that perfect example of tension building and stuff. So
Oh,
really good film.
the tent scene
Oh,
in Willow Creek
incredible.
is terrifying. And the
Yeah,
ending, anyway, back to the list. Staycation or beach vacation?
staycation.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Let's see, Night of the Comet or Night of the Creeps?
Night of the Creeps all day.
Of course, I love that film. Your dates are here. Let's
Bad
see.
news is they're dead.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Atkins is amazing. Cocaine Bear or Grizzly?
I liked Cocaine Bear a lot. I'd say I'd watch that one more than Grizzly.
I did too. This is a lot of fun. Let's see, sold out movie or only person in the theater?
Only person in the theater. Now, I want the movie to do well, but selfishly give me the whole thing to myself.
Yes, that would be amazing. I did see Rob Zombie's Halloween. It was like the last showing, and it was a matinee on a Sunday. I went to see it at Cinema Salem, and I was the only one in the theater. A little
That is
creepy,
cool.
a little creepy, but cool. Let's see, Frogman or Mothman?
Are we talking the movies or the cryptids?
The Cryptids,
Okay. Oh,
or I
I
guess
mean,
both. I don't know.
well, I was going to say
Oh.
I'm a producer on Mothman, so I got to be careful on that one because because
Okay,
my friend
then just the Cryptids then.
my friend Josh Brucker did a Mothman movie, so I'm like I got to be careful if Josh is watching. Um, I would say the Mothman would be my go-to because that
Mhm.
that one freaks me out because of the whole. There's just so much like
Creepy.
mystery
Yeah.
behind it, yeah, and like the
Yes.
foreshadowing of like disasters and it only showing up around there is very scary to me.
Yes. Yes. Like the Mothman Prophecies film
Oh,
probably
that movie
deserves
creeped me out.
more attention. But let's see. So since Halloween isn't that long ago, Snickers or Milky Way?
Snickers.
I think I'd have to do that too. Although I probably ate more Milky Ways this time around. And lastly, we always ask this: Jaws or Halloween '78?
Oh, Jaws. Jaws is my favorite horror movie of all time. Steven Spielberg is
Oh,
my biggest inspiration ever. And if you watch Tahoe Joe again, think about this, and I'm going to tell you something that'll change how you watch it.
okay.
Um, I modeled the first Tahoe Joe after Jaws. So you basically have this creature that nobody's
Hmm.
seen, but there's a disappearance going on, kind of echoing the whole Chrissy disappearing in Jaws. And then the whole second half of the movie is three guys going out looking for said creature. And then if you look at
Yes.
Shane, the conspiracy theorist in Tahoe Joe, we gave him the Quint mutton chops.
Yes. Oh,
And so,
right. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
and I am totally Matt Hooper in it, and Mike is
Hmm.
definitely Sheriff Brody. So I totally paid homage to Jaws with how we put Tahoe Joe together.
Okay, I can totally see it. I think that makes me even a bigger fan of your film now. Like I said, unfortunately, Ben can't be here because Jaws is his favorite film, and he would love to hear that. So I'll make sure he
Oh, that's
listens
great.
to this. Halloween is my go-to. I've got a little bit of a shrine right
I
there
see it
behind me.
back there. That's awesome.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Let's see. Can you tell us a little bit about The Summer We Died, your newest film?
Yeah. So totally wanted to kind of uh, um, I love being the Bigfoot guy, right? It's great, but
Mhm.
it's also nice to be known for other things we've done too. So I was like, I need to do something vastly different than Tahoe Joe
Mhm.
or Tahoe Joe 2. So I decided to take my kind of first stab at a more traditional film. It's not found footage. It has a couple of scenes that you do watch through like a handy cam. So I was still able to play in the genre a little bit, but I very much filmed it like a Larry Clark or early Harmony Korine movie. It's like very handheld, raw, um, but it's a skater punk slasher. It is. I
Cool.
pitch it as this. It is if Saved by the Bell was an Italian giallo slasher MTV music video crossed with a little Quentin Tarantino girl power from Death Proof.
Sounds amazing. Count me in.
um,
What's the
it's it's
go ahead.
so much fun. So yeah, I imagine you're gonna ask the plot, the main premise.
hmm What's the
Um,
timing of the release and how
oh,
can folks watch it?
so I'm hoping it just passed all of its QC stuff with distribution. So it played in some festivals. I'm thinking very very early next year. Maybe after New Year's, we should be starting to see it pop up on some streaming services. Um,
Cool.
but the plot revolves around a small town. We don't really ever say the name,
Okay.
and it's under a curfew, a very strict curfew from the cops, and they're basically saying there's a bunch of killings that have happened, and we don't know at all who's been behind it. But the
Hmm.
only way we can really think about keeping these kids safe is we've got to shut down anything after night because the killer's only kind of recurring theme is that they kill everybody at night. So they've been calling him the Moonlight Killer. And of course, the
Cool.
teenagers in town are basically like, hell no, this is our summer. Most of us, this is like our last summer together. So they rebel by sneaking out. They go to like underground parties and they're at the skate parks all the time. Um, and then things come a little too close to home for them when one of their own basically gets nabbed by the killer, and then it turns into kind of a who done it. But I shot it. Um, it's almost like a 75-minute music video. It's a ton of punk music, and there's a lot of
That
scenes when
sounds.
I didn't necessarily worry about like um
Mhm.
not every scene has like a huge plot point to it. It's more like snapshots of an entire summer through the eyes of teenagers.
Hmm.
And then it just has this killer kind of plot that weaves in and out of their summer, but it takes
Cool.
place over the course of like 3 months.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I can't
It's
wait
a
to
lot of
watch.
fun.
Yeah,
I'll
so
definitely get you a screener link.
please do. I was just going to ask you for that. And yeah, keep us updated on the release of that because maybe we could have you back on and have some of the cast on too. And
Oh, it'd be
Ben,
a lot of
hopefully
fun.
we'll get Ben to join and yeah, we can talk about it. That'd be cool. In the new year,
That would
maybe.
be great. That would
Um,
be great. I worked with some unbelievably talented young ladies that they're local actresses in town, and they've done a few projects. And so I had always kind of heard, and I had worked with one of them, Mandy. Is she played Eve in Ghost?
yes. Okay.
Um, yeah, so we worked with her again, but then a couple of these other girls I had heard from other directors like, hey, they're great to have around set.
Mhm.
But they had never really been in a movie that had a lot of improvisation, and I wanted it because I wanted to sort of catch like what are young girls actually talking about. The last thing I wanted to do as a 38-year-old man was try and write dialogue for like a 19 or 20-year-old woman.
Yes.
Like there's no way I was going to get that right. So it was much
Right.
easier to sort of give them the plot and then say, how would you go about, saying this
Go
or that,
with
or
it. Yeah, and give
right?
them sort of the freedom to make it their own. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And they were so good. I
Cool.
mean, every single scene that we shot, those girls just made my entire life so easy as a director. And yeah, I want that movie to be
Awesome.
successful for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I can't wait to watch it. Well, let's see. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Thank you so much for coming on. My last two questions for you would be, we talked about the physical media of Tahoe Joe 1 and 2. How can folks stream Tahoe Joe and the sequel? And how can they find you on social media?
So the films are on Tubi, Plex. I think Fubo TV, one of them popped up the other day. They keep randomly showing up on places like all over the place. So I
That's a
know
good thing,
Tubi for
though. Yeah.
sure. Tubi's like the
Yes.
easiest one to go to.
Okay.
POV Horror is a found footage kind of themed
Hmm.
streaming service that only does found footage stuff. And they've got it. And then uh, as far as socials, we are on Instagram, Facebook. I'm super active on Facebook and Instagram with interacting with people. So those would probably be the two best places.
Yes.
It's just under Horror Nerd Productions. It's a picture of the quintessential nerd glasses with broken lenses and some
Glasses.
blood on it.
It's like red
Um,
and white too, right?
yes,
Yeah, I mean
yes.
that's how
But
we found
then
each other. So yeah.
I also have another sort of blended company that we created called the Horror Dads, and we are all dads who make horror movies,
Hmm.
and we're all over the country. And that's where I was bringing up Josh earlier with his Mothman film. The reason I'm bringing that up is Tahoe Joe is actually connected to Mothman and Josh's movie The Woodman, and another thing we did called Split Screen, where it actually all is sort of in universe together. And so
Very
Horror
cool.
Dads is another way that people can find us on social media, and it's Dads with a Z. We figured if a bunch of dads got together and tried to sound cool, what would they do? We're like, they would definitely throw a Z on the end of the word.
Yeah, of course, right?
Of
Yeah, makes
course,
total
right?
sense. Makes total sense
Um,
to me. I think I
and
follow that too, but if not, I'll double check.
yeah, yeah, Horror Dads is a great place to kind of keep up with
Hmm.
what we're doing as far
Okay.
as the cryptid verse, as we call it, where a lot of these films are sort of interconnected. They're very lightly interconnected, but they're there. It's really fun.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations on your films. If you haven't seen Tahoe Joe 1 and 2, check them both out. They are very scary. If you're a fan of found footage films, you have to watch them. Let's see. Head on over to YouTube, check out A and B horror movies, like and subscribe. It helps our channel. And as always, thanks for watching. And thank you, Dylan, for joining. Bye,
Thanks, man.
everyone.